This program is rated PG. It contains themes and scenes which may not be suitable for very young audiences. Parental guidance is advised.
Be advised that the views and opinions of the hosts and guests do not reflect those of the station.
Ayan ang image po na inyong nakita the past week na pinaka earth-shaking po. Ito po yung pagpapabagsak ng Su-24 ng Russia doon sa border of Syria and Turkey. And many believe that this has started the run-up to a new major war and maybe even the Third World War. So we can move on to our next slide, which is the other theory that these tensions are arising because of the problem of the Western financial system facing a $500 trillion collapse ng kanyang financial bubble, which includes the derivatives, all the debts that are not readily obvious to most people, but it is there. So we have our guest, Mr. Hiro Vaswani, yung regular na ating inaanyayahan para matulungan tayo magpaliwanag ng mga issues dito sa mundo natin, lalo-lalo na sa mga problema ng sistemang pinansyal ng mundo. And our versatile regular guest and sometimes co-host, Mr. Ferdie Pasion of NatFil, Nationalist Filipinos, at pag-uusapan natin, parating ba ang pandaigdigang digmaan? Is a new world war evolving? Let's go to Hiro. Both general impressions of what has happened this week with the Turkey and Russia imbroglio and financial opinions of many analysts that we may be on a run-up to a financial collapse, and therefore the financial masters would create war for destruction and other purposes. Hiro, what's your take? What's happening? Of course, dito sa local scene natin, maraming cartoon wars ng mga politiko, ng one presidential candidate versus the others, but this is just cartoon. Ang real struggle is here sa geopolitical stage. Hiro.
Well, the world economy is not doing too well.
That's an understatement.
Well, when I say not doing too well, you have to understand what's going on in the United States and China. These two countries today, their economies are affecting the economies of the entire world. China has become an equal to the U.S. power and wealth as far as their economy is concerned. Anybody who denies that is living in a cave.
Okay. Go ahead.
The issues in the Middle East basically goes back to, again, the beginnings of the conflict in Iraq. You go back to the Iran-Iraq war, the price of oil, Saddam Hussein's invasion of Kuwait, all supported by the United States. By the time the 90s came around, the United States was invading Iraq. And then the disastrous invasion of Iraq too unleashed basically ethnic and sectarian conflict in that very volatile region. The United States, unfortunately, tried to support the Sunni population in Iraq, but because they unleashed the Shia majority, backed up by Iran, there arose a Sunni insurgency. And in that Camp Buka, that Sunni insurgency became the birthplace of Daesh, or what everybody calls IS or ISIS. There is no Islamic State to speak of.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the Sunni tribes also, or the Sunnis in Syria, were egged on by the US and France to go against Assad during this Arab Spring. Without realizing it, they unleashed ethnic and sectarian conflict. And you must understand, the Shia-led Iraqi army was thoroughly ill-equipped to deal with this bunch of Sunni insurgents.
You know, behind the scenes or over the entire picture is the overpowering influence of the United States. For example, you mentioned the ill-equipped Shiite army of Iraq. But there are very many instances, including the specific instance of purchases by Iraq of warplanes, which the U.S. Never delivered on time,
Well, it's
always delayed and so on.
The issue was basically the U.S. knew, as far as the military commanders on the ground, that the Shia army was
That's
a
one
hollow place.
That's
Now,
one interpretation. The other interpretation
however,
is deliberate sabotage by the Americans
However,
of the capability
you have
of
to
the
understand,
Iraqi
okay,
military.
that the Americans did not understand the dynamics of the Shia-Sunni rivalry. Saddam Hussein ruled basically with a minority Sunni
Precisely,
group.
yeah.
And the Iraqi army was predominantly Sunni under Saddam. Unfortunately, this stupidity of the Americans when they took over Iraq is they fired the
Yeah.
entire Iraqi army.
It could be, from one perspective, stupidity, but on the other hand, it could have been strategic, deliberate effort
Again,
to destroy, divide Iraq.
if you understand basically the mechanics of the Middle East, again, the Americans have this propensity to blame Iran for everything.
Yeah, well, anyway, let's move on to Ferdie. Ferdie, ano naman ang impressions mo with these factors coming in?
Well, I am the chairman of the Nationalist Filipinos Against Foreign Intervention. We are basically an anti-imperialist group promoting nationalism among all peoples of the world, including in America. Now, our perspective on this is that since the time of Gamal Abdel Nasser, who overthrew the puppet king of Egypt, King Idris, and since he attracted nationalist leaders in the different countries of the Middle East, like Saddam Hussein of Iraq, and Colonel Muammar Gaddafi of Libya, and Hafez al-Assad in Syria, who is the father of the current President Bashar al-Assad, the Americans, the British, and the French lost their respective colonies in the Middle East, and so they started methodically to regain these colonies by thwarting every attempt on the part of these, what the West would like to paint as dictators, every attempt of these nationalist leaders to unify their country. Like, for example, the attempt of President Saddam Hussein to unify the Shiites and the Sunnis.
Under a secular state.
Under a secular state where there is elections. There are elections. Unlike in the monarchies being supported and propped up by the West, like the monarchy of Saudi Arabia, Qatar, etc. And so they deliberately trapped Saddam Hussein and gave him, in fact, the go signal to invade Kuwait. And Saddam Hussein was thinking that it was all right because he had the go signal from the United States. But he was surprised because this was used as a pretext of the United States to start the systematic destruction of the independent countries, sovereign countries in the Middle East. And so we have now the deliberate weakening of the Iraqi state under several dictators installed into power by the Americans, some of them Sunnis, some of them Shiites, and then they destroyed Libya, And now they are trying to destroy Bashar al-Assad. But the Syrian people are united behind him, especially the Christians, the Alawites, and even the Sunnis.
Okay.
There are significant Sunni population supporting Assad.
What is very clear from listening to the two perspectives presented is that we need an overview of the whole thing. Otherwise, we'll get caught in the minutiae and the details, and
Exactly.
it gets really very labyrinthian, magulong-magulong, masalimut, ika nga, ano. Pero if you look at the general outlines, what the West has done is to continue to try to destroy what post-World War II emergence of new republics, whether they're dictatorial republics, people's republics, but generally secular, versus their dictators, like Saudi Arabia, which is a theocratic,
Dictatorship.
aristocratic, oligarchic dictatorship, which they never criticize. di ba?
Yes.
So,
In fact, Saudi Arabia is now conducting a genocide against the Houthis who are fighting against the Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. Why is it that the Americans are supporting the genocide of the Houthis that are fighting against Al-Qaeda if America is really against Al-Qaeda?
can I summarize this long history by saying that, especially if we, on hindsight, you go back to Huntington, who promoted the idea of clash of civilizations, initially of Muslims rising against Christians, but if you go deeper into it, you can see also the creation of the Sunni Shiite rift, which had
The
been,
old divide and rule tactic.
yes, but that had been absent for several hundred years, despite, of course, the underlying currents there. But they could overcome it under secular states, of leaders like Gaddafi, Saddam Hussein, and so on. So ito ang malaking issue, the deliberate use of sectarian conflicts. And kung babalik tayo sa Iraq, doon sa narrative na binigay ni Hiro, yung radicalization of the Sunnis started when the surge happened and they supported these different efforts to build a counterforce against the Sunnis, and so on. So, lalong tumindi. In fact, what I can recall very vividly is the incident and the photos of two British officers dressed as Arabs running around in a car bomb, but they were arrested by the Iraqi military and unmasked, and the British forces saved them from jail using tanks and armor and so on, and
Just like what happened
saved
here
them from the
in Mindanao.
Iraqi police.
Remember Mayring?
Michael Mering. So, yung divide and conquer and so on. But let's go now to the other possible basis for fearing the next war. And this is the economic financial crisis that the present system is facing. In fact, for example, Martin Armstrong, who studies cycles and manages multi-billion-dollar sovereign investment funds, argues that war plans against Syria are really about debt and spending. The Syrian mess seems to have people lining up on Capitol Hill in the U.S. when sources there say the phone calls coming in are overwhelmingly against any action. The politicians are ignoring the people entirely. This suggests that there is indeed a secret agenda to achieve a goal outside the discussion box. That is, most like the debt problem, and a war is necessary to relieve the pressure to curtail spending. In other words, the U.S. Congress wants to spend and spend and spend on wars.
Again, this old story about this financial bubble depends on how you look at it. The last 5-6 years, the major central banks of Europe, Japan, and the US, basically, they comprise the bulk of world GDP. Because of the severe downturn, and to prevent another depression, they have gone on and printed a lot of new money. However, that new money did not go to the physical economy.
to the people so the people can spend and buy things. No?
Physical economy, meaning
That's right.
it went basically back into the financial markets.
To the bankers. We have to
Financial
we
markets,
have to
again,
person,
when you say bankers,
no.
they are intermediaries. Okay, who is basically earning from this? Let me put it in local conditions. The three families are now listed in the Forbes list of billionaires. Henry C.,
Ayala, Aboitiz.
Ayala, Aboitiz. Why and how? Because money is cheap, they have gone on into a spending spree. What do I mean spending spree? They are acquiring new businesses and expanding basically their business outside their core businesses. So what happens to the value of their equity shares? And that is a simple derivative.
Yeah, but yeah, that's a derivative. Here in the Philippines, you can see that a microcosm of the global
Exactly.
bubble,
Today,
financial bubble.
Bain and Company has estimated that in the last 6 years, global financial assets have ballooned.
Now, we have 4 or 5 minutes, no? So
Okay,
we have to
now-
accelerate this. So,
You have to understand exactly what they mean by derivatives. You have two sides.
but we don't have
of-
that time
okay,
to go.
assets, liabilities. Derivatives are basically hedges.
Oh.
But then you look at the underlying asset. Okay? Look at the Philippines. What is the market capitalization of Ayala Company? In totality. My God, they own 20% of the market capitalization of the Philippine Stock Exchange. That's one family. You multiply
No.
that by
Okay.
the whole capitalist region, you add
In
China
the world,
into that.
you're
in
talking
the world,
of the world.
in the
So,
world.
Yeah, oh. Kaya nga yung 500 trillion, no?
Okay, so,
Yeah, that means Morgan Stanley,
And they are
the
intermediaries.
bankers,
Goldman Sachs,
yeah,
and
the
so on.
bankers
They are
are
intermediaries.
letting this big business borrow money at negative interest rates, and these big business people, they buy the stocks of their own corporations to prop up the
Yeah,
value of
that's-
the stocks.
no. Okay. Now, these are the powers that control American policymakers, no?
Correct.
They are the ones who control the corporations, of
Correct.
which in America, the biggest earners are the defense industries too. Di ba?
You have to understand that America is a multifaceted industrial base. Their military base is also their industrial base. Why? Look at these new technologies. Where did they come from? Military research
Okay.
and spending.
Suma total,
So what's new about that?
ang gera ay nakakatulong sa mga
Economy.
nagahari nila sa
Correct.
Estados Unidos. I'm not saying nakakabuti sa Amerika kasi the population is not better off today.
The owners,
It's like the Philippines.
the
ano?
owners of the military-industrial complex are the ones benefiting, not the American
Okay,
people.
but in the last 2-3 minutes, we have to make the point. No? In fact, 1 minute. Ang problema is that this system cannot be sustained because nagugutom ang tao, walang pera ang tao. Maghahanap yan ang taong bayan ng mga may kasalanan dito. And like the French Revolution, it may come and Marie Antoinette and King Louis the 14th, 17th, 18th, 16th, pupugutan ng ulo. Pupugutan ang ulo nila Ayala, Henry C. and so on.
Well, I wouldn't go that far.
Pero sa Pilipinas, hindi tayo sanay mamugot ng ulo except yung MILF, no? Pero doon sa Europeano, mga Europeans, the Americans,
The guillotine.
if the revolution comes, they will be merciless in the ruling class. That's why the ruling class there want war with Russia and then with China
To
using
divert
the
the attention
Philippines.
of the people.
Look, there is no longer nationality when it comes to global capitalism.
Okay, we have
Okay.
our last few seconds. Sige,
And
bilisan
the
natin.
Russian oligarchs basically are in tune
Okay.
with all the oligarchies around the world.
How do we stop war?
You stop war? Oh my God.
No, you have no answer? You have an answer?
Well, we have to expose this evil system and thwart every
Okay.
attempt to start a war.
So, malaman natin ang buong katotohanan. That's the only way to stop war. So we will stop allowing ourselves to be used in the run-up to this war. Okay, maraming salamat. Stay on for the second half on the Shinzo Abe, B.S. Aquino, great train robbery of the Filipino people.